Guys, what's going on? I am Tim Kelly, hosting the Blitz Hardcore podcast tonight, along with John Burns. John, what's up, man?
Nothing, man. Just got done watching the All-Star game.
Yeah, it was an uneventful All-Star game, I'd say, but we'll get to that in a second. Also, Matt Genius is on with us. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Disappointed in my boy Verlander, man.
Yeah, no, tonight was not his best performance. So we're going to get to a discussion about Justin Verlander in a bit. I'm going to go through a short recap of this All-Star game, but if you missed it, the AL did fall to the NL for the third straight year, and after all those years of the NL winning or losing to the AL, I think it was 1996 to 2009, the AL won all the All-Star games, and now the NL has a fairly impressive streak going as well. So the NL's got this streak going. I'm going to recap some of this game. John and I are going to give out our first half MLB awards, Manager of the Year, Rookie of the Year, MVP, and a few other things as well. I got to look what the other award is, also Cy Young, obviously. And we're going to also talk about last night's home run derby as well. So going through this game, Justin Verlander really blew it pretty much in the first inning. Justin Verlander comes out tonight with last year, obviously, the AL MVP, the Cy Young Award winner, was disappointing in the playoffs for them, and he comes out tonight in a big game, if you consider the All-Star game a big game. He comes out tonight and gives up a 5 spot in the first inning, including a 3-run triple to the Kung Fu Panda Pablo Sandoval of the San Francisco Giants. Just disappointing for Justin Verlander, 5-0. The NL did add on with a Matt Holliday RBI and a Mlkey Cabrera home run. Mlkey Cabrera, who was 2 for 3 in this game with that home run, was named the All-Star Game's MVP. Now, quite honestly, I like that Mlkey Cabrera was the MVP. You see how hard this guy's worked, and I like that they're going to build a field in his hometown or redo a kid's baseball field in his hometown. But when they give out a Camaro to the guy who wins this, I don't understand why they needed that, honestly. John, does that make any sense to you?
Not really. They're trying to make it look like the Super Bowl when it's just the All-Star game.
Well, and I understand. I don't understand even for the Super Bowl. These guys, it's not like Mlkey Cabrera is a no-name. He might not have A-Rod's salary, but I think we could give that Camaro to somebody else or use the money that they used to buy that Camaro for Mlkey Cabrera and give that to somebody else that's more neat. Maybe we could solve some problems. I don't know. I'm not trying to end world hunger here, but it just does not make a ton of sense to me. So 5 runs in the first inning. Ultimately, the NL goes up 8-0. Some good pitching, and one of the things that I really like about this All-Star game is the introductions. I think that is my favorite part of the All-Star game, just hearing all the different players introduced before the game. And during the game, one of the things that I really enjoyed, obviously this wasn't the best All-Star game of all time, but one of the things that you really enjoy is you look up and Cole Hamels and Bryce Harper had a beef earlier this season. Cole Hamels is pitching in, I believe, the 7th inning. He throws a pitch, hits the left field, Bryce Harper makes the catch, all of a sudden they're on the same team. It's cool to see things like that in the All-Star game. I know that a lot of people think the All-Star game is boring. It's by far the best All-Star game out of any sport, if you ask me and most people. But I really enjoyed watching this game just to see guys like that. Chipper Jones in his final season, and he no doubt will be a Hall of Famer. Chipper Jones comes in tonight, gets a seeing eye single, and gets a standing ovation from the Kansas City crowd. And Kansas City really, in my mind, did a tremendous job hosting this. I've realized how beautiful Kauffman Stadium is since they renovated since 2009. And the fans there deserve a winning team, and with some of the young guys that they have there, like Eric Hosmer, Mike Moustakas, Billy Butler, Juan Perez, Jeff Francoeur, the list goes on. The Royals are not too far away from being a contending team down over the course of the next few seasons. They had a slow start this year, but overall, throughout the next few seasons, I would look for the Royals to be a team in a division that really is not that great, to actually make a run and potentially go to the playoffs at some point over the next few years. John, what did you think overall of the All-Star game? Did you find it exciting, boring, in between? What is your overall thought on the game tonight?
Well, I completely agree with you, first of all, about this is the best All-Star game in sports because this actually counts. I think a lot more players are willing to show more effort than other sports because they're actually playing for something. This year's game was a blowout, so it wasn't the best game to watch, but you don't get to see blowouts in the All-Star game very much going against the best players in the world, so it was sort of entertaining. I wish it was a better game overall, but it was still a good game.
Yeah, I mean, it still only happens once a year. I still enjoy watching the All-Star game every single season. Like you mentioned, it wasn't the greatest All-Star game that we've seen in a while, especially, I mean, the best one that I can remember is the Yankee Stadium one in 2009 that went to extra innings. I think it was in the 12th or 13th inning, and the AL ultimately won. That was a great game. You're not going to get a great game every year, but it was cool to see Tony La Russa back. It was cool to see him overmanage a game like he did in the ninth inning, put Joel Hanrahan in, put Jonathan Papelbon in to get the save at the end of the game. So there were certainly some things I enjoyed about this, and ultimately I just enjoy seeing all these different guys play together. The game itself, maybe the game itself isn't the greatest thing, but as you mentioned, it counts. And for those of you who don't know what that means, since 2003, in 2002 the All-Star game ended in a tie because both teams ran out of pitchers when it went to extra innings. This was in Milwaukee, Miller Park, 2002. And what Bud Selig said is, you ran out of pitchers, well, we're just going to end the game in a tie. You guys know that if a regular season MLB game goes and they run out of pitchers, does Bud Selig come on the field and say, you know what, we're just going to call the game, we'll put a tie, we'll add a tie into the win-loss column, and we'll just leave it at that? No, and normally you would just go to a position player, but because it was All-Star game, it didn't happen. That turned a lot of people off to the All-Star game. So what started in 2003 in the MLB was the MLB decided to institute that this one counts, whatever you want to call it, motto. And what that means is that whatever team wins the All-Star game, that league gets home field advantage in the World Series. So since the NL won, let's say the St. Louis Cardinals, I'm just throwing a team out there, makes it back to the World Series, they will have home field advantage in the World Series. It does not go by record or anything like that, or how it used to be where it just went back and forth every other year. Each league got it. That's not how it is anymore. But I like that because, first of all, there's not a great way to decide who gets home field advantage. And second of all, it makes people want to watch the All-Star game. And I've listened to a lot of radio today of guys saying that this is why we see a lot of these guys play in the All-Star game, and this is why we see a lot of these guys try. Everyone knows the Pro Bowl is a joke. Everybody knows the NBA one is watchable the first quarter or two, and then the third quarter it gets ridiculous, and then with about 5 minutes in the fourth quarter, it gets to the point where, oh, shit, it's a close game, we're going to start trying now, and then they get the ball to LeBron James, and he misses the shot to end the game. That's not how every year goes. That's how this year's went, but you kind of understand that the players say before the game, one team's story going to get up, and at the end we're going to make this a close game. In the MLB, it's unpredictable, and that's one thing that's great, and sometimes, like tonight, not so great about the game of baseball, is that you can come in one night and have the NL win 8-0, and if you came back tomorrow, the AL could win 5-2. I don't know. I enjoyed this game. Matt Genius, what did you think about the game? I know you're an AL fan.
Yeah, I'm a AL fan. It's just disappointed. You know, we had 3 All-Stars, and after, Fielder's big night yesterday with the home run derby and everything, and Miguel Cabrera having such a good year, he kind of expected them to do more, and especially Verlander. I mean, he's one of only 3 starters to give up 5 runs in the All-Star game.
Yeah, it's disappointing, and the one thing with Justin Verlander right now is he has a career playoff ERA, and most of this comes from last year, 5.57. And while he was 24-5 last season, he had a disappointing playoffs. Even though they did get to the ALCS, they got by the Yankees. A lot of that was other pitchers like Doug Fister stepping up. But the one thing that we're starting to hear about Justin Verlander is that maybe this guy, somewhat like Greg Maddux used to be, is a great regular season pitcher, but when it comes to the actual playoffs and bigger games like this, he does not do as well. I saw someone tweet that, and I just wanted to throw that out. He has a 5.57 career ERA in the playoffs. It's not a huge sample size, so I guess that's not a ton to go off of. He's thrown a few perfect games, so if you want to look at the other side, that's certainly it. He is an AL MVP and a Cy Young. But Matt Genius, you're a Tigers fan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you believe that Justin Verlander kind of in some of these big games is not as sharp as he normally is?
Oh, of course. I mean, during the season, I know when to expect Verlander to be on his hot streak, and that's usually during the middle of the summer. He pitches way better when it's really hot outside. Like, if it's 90 degrees and above, Verlander's pitches are on the money. He gets better movement, and it's like, for some reason, the fatigue doesn't get to him. That's why you always see him throw those no-hitters or those great pitching games during the middle of the summer when it's super hot. But as far as the rest of the season goes, he's kind of, inconsistent, to say the least.
Yeah, he really is, and that is one thing that's going to start to creep up on him, especially if the Tigers do make the playoffs, which if the season ended today, they would not. But I would expect before the end of the season, the Tigers will get back into first place and be in a position to be in the playoffs. He needs to step up in these playoffs, or he is going to begin to get that reputation as a guy who does not perform very well in the playoffs. He does a great job in the regular season, but does not perform as well in the playoffs, and that's not something you want to have as your reputation, because then people will overanalyze what you do. If you give up 3 runs, then they'll say, oh, well, he's still not as good as usual. When if another guy like, let's say, an Andy Pettitte or Kurt Schilling, 2 guys that had tremendous playoff careers, and obviously Andy Pettitte will probably pitch in the playoffs this year as well, but if they give up 3 runs in the playoffs, they'll say, okay, it's one bad game, but look at the sample size, look at what they've done throughout their playoff careers. You can't really say too much about it. In Justin Verlander's case, though, that reputation will begin to creep up on him if he does not perform well in the playoffs this season. Now, I don't like to look at all-star games and really believe that an all-star game determines if you are a big-game pitcher or a big-game player. I thought it was stupid when people denounced LeBron James in the NBA this season, and I think it's stupid when people are doing it with Justin Verlander. But given what Justin Verlander did in the playoffs last year, and I guess given what LeBron James had done in the NBA Finals the season before, it kind of makes sense a little. But if I'm evaluating Justin Verlander as a good big-game pitcher, I'm not going to look back at the All-Star game if I'm trying to say, yes, he is, or no, he isn't, and really count that as much. John, what do you think?
Well, one thing you got to point out, last year during the playoffs, his starts, I believe, against the Yankees, a lot of it had to do with the rain. That's the series with the rain delays.
Yeah.
His scheduled pitching would change, stuff like that. So he wasn't pitching on his scheduled dates and stuff like that, so they're almost rushing him. I think Justin Verlander, he's proven it. I think he's thrown, 2 no-hitters?
Yeah.
So I think that proves that he's pretty clutch in my perspective. But
yeah,
last year,
and
he's kind of starting to garner that reputation as just a strikeout artist, guy who just gets tons of strikeouts. That's kind of what he's starting to turn into.
Yeah,
I see what you mean.
Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. If I was a Tigers fan, I would obviously be disappointed. Looking at the All-Star game, though, again, doesn't make sense. Roy Halladay, when he was with the Toronto Blue Jays, started a All-Star game and gave up 3 or 4 runs in the first inning. I think it was in 2008, 2009. Obviously, then he was traded over to the Phillies a few years ago, and I'm a Phillies fan. And he had never pitched in the playoffs before. We were looking Game 1 of the 2010 playoffs, and people were worried that maybe Roy Halladay's not a big-game pitcher, and in his first playoff start, he went out and threw a perfect game or a no-hitter in the playoffs. So looking at the All-Star game doesn't make a ton of sense. A guy like Justin Verlander certainly has that capability to throw a no-hitter at any time. He's going to be right in the Cy Young discussion. Honestly, I thought that there were other candidates that maybe I would have started based off this season in the All-Star game, but I didn't really have a problem with Justin Verlander starting either. As for Matt Cain, I know a lot of people had or believed that R.A. Dickey should have started, but Buster Posey was the starting catcher, and as good a Buster Posey's a good fielder. He's not as good a fielder as Carlos Ruiz is. And Buster Posey had not handled the knuckleball before, neither had Carlos Ruiz, but Tony La Russa made the decision that Carlos Ruiz was better to handle the knuckleball rather than having Buster Posey try and handle it. So he started Matt Cain, a guy who's had a great first half, over R.A. Dickey. Now, R.A. Dickey had a better first half than Matt Cain. That being said, though, I didn't have a ton of an issue with Matt Cain pitching in this game. And looking back at this game, NL fans shouldn't have had much of an issue because Matt Cain gave you 2 nice innings, John.
Yeah, it was a toss-up. I would have went with Dickey personally, but like we saw, it was 8-0, so they both did their job. Dickey's numbers are better, but it's a toss-up. They're both great pitchers. Either of them would have given you a good outing.
Yeah, no question. Going off that with the Giants really did dominate this game, though. We saw Mlkey Cabrera, obviously the MVP, and then Pablo Sandoval had the 3-run triple in the first inning, as they said, as Aaron Andrews said, and it is nice to see her on Fox. Aaron Andrews said this after the game today to him. This is your first triple of the season. It comes in the All-Star game, so that was nice for Pablo Sandoval to get that triple. The Giants really dominated this game. We saw Matt Cain start, and then obviously those 2 guys come up big. And then Matt Holliday did get the RBI. As for the AL, we mentioned Justin Verlander. There really isn't a ton else that we look at in the AL that I'm really going to look back at and remember. Josh Hamilton was close to hitting a home run, but close doesn't really mean much. And Billy Butler got a standing ovation. Obviously, the Kansas City Royals DH, he got a standing ovation when he came up to bat for the Royals, from the Royals fans. And overall, John, how would you rank the Royals, how they handled this entire weekend? We're going to get to analyzing the home run derby in a second, but as far as the overall, not the weekend, but the 2 days that the All-Star break was here, how good of a job do you think that they did?
I think it was an electric atmosphere today and yesterday, honestly. The thing with the Cano thing, I'm sure we'll get to that later. I wasn't a big fan of booing him. But it was packed last night with the Derby. Everyone was on their feet. Looked like everyone stayed. I think Kansas City was a perfect spot for this year's midseason classic.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, if you're looking to build a new park, put the fountains in the outfield because that's a great feature at Kauffman. That is one of the oldest stadiums in the MLB now. Most of the stadiums in the MLB have been built since 2000 on, and Kauffman Stadium is kind of the one that people forget about. It's been renovated a couple times, but it's been there since 1973, and the All-Star game was there in 1973 as well. It's a beautiful stadium out there. It's certainly one that I want to visit. Now, there's a lot of nice stadiums that I want to visit as well, and going off the fountains in the outfield, the other stadium has the water in the outfield, I guess I should say, is the Angel Stadium. That's one of the nicer stadiums in the MLB as well. So if you're looking to build a new stadium, that is a nice feature to add as well. Matt Genius, what did you think about the Royals' job hosting this All-Star break?
They did a good job, especially for someone who's considered a small market. They did a pretty good job. It's nice to see small market teams, well, not teams, but cities do good things. And it's good to see the Giants, especially like the Giants, how they had a good game tonight, especially after the tragedies that happened last season. It's good to see somewhat of an underdog story in a way.
Yeah, I agree with that, no doubt. It's just looking out the rest of the All-Star game, it was kind of interesting that they had Phil Schifley at the All-Star game today. I guess interesting is the only way to put it because I don't know if I really liked it or not. He's from that, I don't even know what it's an ad. It's one of those, don't get stuck doing this, this, and this. Oh, yeah, it's DirecTV. He was at the game, kind of interesting, I guess. What I'm going to remember from this weekend is that it was beautiful at or not this weekend, I don't know why I keep saying that. I'm thinking the All-Star game in the NBA. And this All-Star break over the MLB in Kansas City is that it was a really nice stadium, but overall, the two events were pretty forgettable, John.
Yeah, the events weren't too good, but they showed up. It was a great atmosphere. It was still watchable. It wasn't awful. It could have been better. Throw in some other guys to the home run derby maybe for the NL. I don't know if Kemp should have been in it, but I'm sure we'll get to that later.
All right, we do have some callers in the queue, so I don't control that. Bruce is controlling that, so talk to Bruce. Don't get mad at me in the chat room. As far as anything else in this game, anything else you guys want to add before we go on to the home run derby?
No.
Not really.
Okay, I just want to add actually two more things. Steven Strasburg in the game surprised me. We all know about the innings limit that he has been on, 160. This was his 100th inning tonight. That comes off Twitter. I forget which MLB reporter said that. Kind of surprised that with Davey Johnson, the Nationals manager, on this staff, I thought that Steven Strasburg would not pitch in this game. I mean, I guess it's cool to pitch in an All-Star game, but it's a lot cooler to pitch in the playoffs and try and go for a World Series. And the Nationals are really pushing it. Every inning does count here with Steven Strasburg. And Mike Rizzo, as Ken Rosenthal said during the game, Mike Rizzo, the Nationals general manager, has said that Strasburg will not go over that 160 innings mark, at least not in the regular season. And that one inning could really decide in the close NL East if the Nationals go to the playoffs. So that kind of surprised me. And also, something that didn't surprise me was, yet again, we had to listen to Tim McCarver's awful announcing. I mean, I don't understand why Fox keeps bringing this guy back. I feel bad for Joe Buck. I'm not a huge Joe Buck fan. I like Joe Buck's voice, but he hates Philadelphia, so I'm just not a huge Joe Buck fan. But the two guys that he is most known with, Joe Buck is most known with Troy Aikman, Mr. Oh yeah, we're announcing a game between the Raiders and the Chargers. Let's talk about how good Tony Romo's doing. He always finds a way to turn it to Cowboys. And then you got Tim McCarver with you when you're talking MLB. And Tim McCarver just says some of the most off-the-wall stuff. He must have repeated 5 times about how, is there anything Mike Trout can't do? And it's like, okay, we get it. Mike Trout's a great player. But after the 5th time of you saying it, it's just annoying. The words he uses, really, Fox has got to change something. Do either of you guys disagree with that, really?
Yeah, I think Joe Buck's more for football.
It's hard to find good play-by-play guys for national TV, though, because the good ones, they're probably all doing local, their local teams. So it's kind of hard to find somebody to do it on a national scale. That's good.
Yeah, that's probably true. But when you're talking about Tim McCarver, I really think it would be tough to find anyone that's worse than Tim McCarver. I don't know. Moving on to the home run derby last night, obviously Prince Fielder won the home run derby last night. Pretty uneventful for me, to be honest. I enjoyed watching a few guys in this. Jose Bautista had a nice job. Mark Trumbo did a good job. I picked Andrew McCutchen of the Pirates. He was out early. Overall, it was forgettable. It's not that I didn't enjoy it or anything, but it's not one of the better ones that I've seen over the last few years. Obviously, the home run derby isn't what it used to be when we're talking about the Ken Griffey Jr.'s and the Mark McGwire-type home run derbies because there's no steroids in the MLB anymore. I know Ken Griffey Jr. wasn't on steroids, but during those eras, it was more fun to watch because people were catapulting home runs using steroids. I mean, obviously, they still have to swing a bat, but when you're taking steroids, it's a lot easier to hit home runs than if you're not. That being said, I still think that the home run derbies over the last few seasons have been pretty watchable. I'd definitely watch a home run derby over the dunk contest any day, especially the one last year. But with the home run derby this year, it just really lacked a storyline. Last year, the Robinson Cano and his dad thing was kind of cool. The best one over the last few years was Josh Hamilton coming back from the drug thing, hitting home runs almost out of the old Yankee Stadium. This one, John, it kind of lacked that big storyline.
Yeah, definitely. There wasn't that big story, that big media coverage for it. Mark Trumbo, he was a good sleeper, but he didn't win it. I think it's great, though, that the winners, like Prince Fielder, his kids, everyone's family's there. The NL and AL players are on the sides rooting for him. I'm not a big fan of David Ortiz coming out every couple outs to hug his homies, but stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I agree with the David Ortiz thing. Like, he won the 1 year. We get it, David Ortiz. Like, he needs to get every single guy a bottle of vitamin water in between. If they go 2 pitches or 2 swings without a home run, they need to go out and talk to every single player. It's pretty annoying. Mad Genius, what did you think about the home run derby?
I liked it, but it was, with the popularity of the game falling, it's like it's lacking that star power. Like, the casual fan won't know who a lot of these guys are, and I think that's hurting it. Because even the guy who won it, Prince Fielder, I mean, a casual fan probably wouldn't even know him, and he's pretty much a big star. We know he's a big star, but, the casual fans don't know these guys because the popularity of the game is falling.
I understand what you think, and that's really something that when I was watching the game today, I was looking around, and obviously, as an MLB guy, and obviously I cover all sports, but as an MLB guy, I know all these guys coming out there, but I'm thinking, all right, obviously, most people aren't going to know Michael Bourne of the Braves, and Michael Bourne's been a really good player with the Astros and a few other teams. Cook from the A's, no one would know him if you don't watch all-around baseball. Prince Fielder, I think most people would know who Prince Fielder is, but I get your point, obviously. You're right. I mean, these 2 guys coming up, Mike Trout and Bryce Harper, the one thing that both of them lack is that 40 to 50 home run power. That's what people want to see. Real baseball fans and people that love the game have no problem with seeing these guys hitting 320 with 32 home runs. I'd rather see that. But people that are casual fans and the fans that either make or break a league are casual fans, they want to see these guys that they don't care if they bat 245, but they want to see them hitting 50-plus home runs. And since steroids have gone out of the game, we haven't seen nearly as many of those guys. It's going to change. It's a trend in the MLB right now, but it's not going back to how it was in the late 90s. People waiting for that are kind of insane because there will never be another drug that is allowed to go under or be swept under the rug, so to speak, by the MLB because of the whole steroid scandal and the black cloud that it put on baseball afterwards. So that is never going to happen. I do agree, though, that baseball is kind of lacking that style power, and I've noticed even from like 2008, 2009, and 2009 or 2010 was the year of the pitcher, there's been less and less home runs, less and less power hitters. I mean, that's why I enjoy watching guys like Adam Dunn as much as he strikes out, or Ryan Howard and Prince Fielder and Giancarlo Stanton, because it used to be pretty much every team had a guy that could hit 40 or 50 home runs, at least when I started watching baseball in the late 90s, early 2000s, and right now it's not that way, John.
Yeah, it's getting to be a pitcher's game. Like, other guys like Albert Pujols, guys like that, I think should be in the Derby almost every year. Adam Dunn, you can even throw in a Mark Reynolds, who's got unbelievable power but just can't hit the ball in the regular season. But just more household names, I guess, more superstars, get more media. I know a lot of teams, I'm sure like the Angels wouldn't want a Pujols. And I heard Cano was talking to Pujols about doing it, but told him to pick Trumbo instead. Like you guys were saying, a lot of people who are casual fans not going to know a Mark Trumbo, guys like this. So they need to start getting bigger superstars, and I think it'll be a lot more watchable and a lot more fun.
Yeah. No, and I don't know what baseball is going to do about that. The popularity is falling. I think at this point the NBA is going above the MLB. Look, we're going to be here talking about the MLB no matter how popular it is, but I do kind of miss that everyone used to be able to talk about baseball. And when you go to places now, less and less people know about baseball, talk about baseball, and really the biggest problem I think is that they're not promoting it enough in like inner cities. People would rather play football or basketball than play baseball, and I think that's the biggest problem overall. But I don't have like a great answer for why the MLB lacks so much star power besides the steroids one. I don't know. Besides
cheaper, other sports, a sport like basketball, which is kind of eclipsed baseball. It's cheaper and it's easier to play. You can go shoot hoops by yourself. Baseball, you kind of got to have either somebody to pitch the ball to you or somebody to hit the ball to you, and then you got to buy the equipment and stuff. Basketball, you just need basketball. It's got a lot to do with that too.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. John, is there anything, like any reason you could think why baseball is kind of lacking that star power, really?
Nothing I can really think of. Just, I've noticed the NBA and NFL, I guess, have got a lot more superstars. Like, it's not like, I mean, the MLB, this is just talk, but the MLB, there's a different guy on the cover for the video game, stuff like that. But that's all they get out to the media, stuff like that. Baseball, it's got its own channel, stuff like that. So do all the other leagues. But I just think America's turning into a basketball and football country, honestly.
Yeah, I think it has to. Especially, I think football with all these concussion problems will probably fall. I think that we might actually be heading in that. This is something that pre-decision in that whole big summer I would have never even thought was possible. I think we might be headed for basketball being the number one sport. But obviously this is baseball night, so we're going to get back onto the baseball coverage. With the home run derby, I think we pretty much summed it up. Prince Fielder was the victor. I don't know why I said that, but it's what came out. Prince Fielder won the home run derby last night. Great job by Prince Fielder. Great display of power. It's the second time that he has won the home run derby in Missouri. Obviously, he won it in St. Louis the other year, and this is Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas City, Kansas, like some people tend to think. What John and I are going to do now is we are going to give you our first half awards. This means Cy Young, MVP, Rookie of the Year, and Manager of the Year. Now, in some of these, it's too close to tell at this point because we're only halfway through the season. We start making these tougher decisions towards the end of the season when they have to be made. Right now, they don't necessarily have to be made. So I don't know about John's list because I haven't seen John's list, but for me at least, there are, at some positions and for some awards, there's a few candidates I have, and I can give you a couple guys that I think are better or have a better chance to win down the stretch. So we'll start with the AL Cy Young. John, who do you have as your AL Cy Young winner?
I've got Justin Verlander with a 9-5 record and a 2.58 ERA. He is also tied for the league in strikeouts with 128. His numbers aren't the same as last year, not as dominant, but they're still Cy Young worthy. Like last year, he went on the tear, won 24 games. He's still the best pitcher in the AL, in my opinion, and I'd have to go with him as the Cy Young.
Justin Verlander?
Yeah.
All right, I think Justin Verlander will probably be in the top 2 or 3, if not the best, by the end of this season. I'm going to go with Jared Weaver, though. Jared Weaver this season, while he's made less starts, has thrown almost as many innings as a few other guys up there, like Chris Sale and C.J. Wilson. Jared Weaver this year is 10-1 with a 1.96 ERA and 0.90 with 2 complete games. One of those is a shutout. Jared Weaver has had a tremendous season this year for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. He's been knocking on the door of the Cy Young for the last 2 or 3 seasons, and this may be the year that he finally gets it done. Tremendous season for him. Matt G, do you have, just off the top of your head, anyone that you think is the favorite for this award?
You can't argue with Jared Weaver 10-1 with a 1.96 ERA, but I think David Price could be another option too. I mean, he's 11-4, but but his ERA is 2.82, which isn't terrible either.
Yeah, by the end of the season, a lot of these guys' ERAs will go up, and the really good pitchers, you see their ERAs go down. David Price is a guy that I'm kind of surprised at this point that he hasn't won a Cy Young, so he's certainly someone, David Price of the Tampa Bay Rays we're talking about. He is someone that over the next few seasons, if not this year, is a prime candidate to win a Cy Young. John, looking over to the NL, the favorite is R.A. Dickey. Are you going to go with R.A. Dickey or someone else?
I'm going with R.A. Dickey. with one of the best stories in baseball, Dickey is tied for the Major League lead with 12 wins. He's basically brought life to the Mets this season. Without R.A. Dickey, the Mets would be dead last in the NL East, even below the Phillies, I think. He's been proven as one of the best pitchers.
I don't know about that, but
he's been proven as one of the best pitchers this season and should have been the starter in the All-Star game, and I'd have to go with him for Cy Young.
I agree, and you're right. His story is absolutely tremendous. Let me give you the numbers he's had this year. While Johan Santana has come back and had a great season, R.A. Dickey has outdone him for the New York Mets, and that's why they have been one of the best surprise teams in the first half of this MLB season. And if you miss any of the standings or anything, we'll get to the standings right after we go through all of our awards. R.A. Dickey this year, 12-1 with a 2.40 ERA, a 123 strikeouts, in 0.93 WHIP, and opponents are hitting just 2.03 against Dickey this season. His name might be funny, but facing his knuckleball this season has not been funny. Here's a guy that, if you did not hear the story during the All-Star game, bounced around the MLB, found himself with the New York Mets a couple seasons ago as a number 3-4 starter. He looked like, hey, he came out of nowhere, gave them some good pitching, and you thought, well, I mean, that's a nice find. Last year he built on what he did in 2010, and then this year he has absolutely exploded for the New York Mets. Tremendous season for R.A. Dickey, and he's kind of one of those guys that you can't help but root for.
Yeah, true. And I mean, out of the top 20 players, he has the third.
Don't like it. What did you say, John?
I didn't say nothing.
Oh, okay. I heard another voice. But go ahead, Matt Genius.
That was Bruce trolling us.
Oh, all right.
But, yeah, all right, Dickey, you got the...
Don't like it.
There he goes again. All right, Dickey, he's got the third lowest ERA out of the top 20 pitchers in wins, so you can't really argue that, being that he is first in wins, too.
Yeah, he's first in wins. I think he's first in ERA. I'll double-check that, but R.A. Dickey's been a great story for the New York Mets this season. Unfortunately, I do not see Dickey having the type of staying power to actually put together a full Cy Young season. I think by the end of the season, we'll see his ERA closer to 3. But that being said, being where Dickey's coming from at age 37 this year with that incredible knuckleball, which got hit around a little bit tonight by some of the younger guys like Mike Trout, but being where he's come from to have a 3 ERA is still a tremendous season. This has been a great story. And, yeah, he probably should have started in tonight's All-Star game. As we look over to the NL MVP now, John, who's your NL MVP so far?
I've got Joey Votto of the Cincinnati Reds. The batting average of .348. He has 14 homers and 48 RBIs. Votto has been a top hitter in the league and is the main reason why the Cincinnati Reds are in first place right now.
John, you there? All right, it looks like John got cut off, but I'll just build on what John said before he gets back on because I have Joey Votto as well. Joey Votto this season, the 2010 NL MVP, first baseman for the Cincinnati Reds, has been playing out of his mind, hitting .348 with 14 home runs, 48 RBIs, a .471 on-base percentage, and a .617 slugging percentage. He will not only have to hold off Andrew McCutchen of the Pittsburgh Pirates in the MVP race, but he has to now catch Andrew McCutchen in the NL Central divisional race as the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team whose last winning season came when you had Barry Bonds and Willie Stargell there in the early 1990s, are actually in first place going into the All-Star break. Andrew McCutchen is now batting .362 with 18 home runs. The reason I don't have Andrew McCutchen as my MVP so far is just because of the fact that most of his home runs, and really he's been hot as of late. And I think that the MVP not only needs to be about numbers and what I see, but it needs to be about putting together a full season. And like I said, when a lot of people tried to make Cliff Lee a Cy Young candidate last year, he did that in a few months. He had a few great months, and then he was inconsistent. Joey Votto has been more consistent throughout this season than Andrew McCutchen so far. That doesn't mean that McCutchen could not win the MVP, and I think that he has a very good chance to do so this season. If the Pirates finish in first place and go to the playoffs, it's almost a lock that he will win that. But Joey Votto has had a great season nonetheless, Matt Genius.
Yeah, that's probably the only argument there is against McCutchen, seeing that he's the only player that's top 5 in batting average, home runs, and RBI. And you know, stats is always the thing that wins people awards, especially with the people who vote for it.
Yeah, I mean, if it was about stats today, then maybe Andrew McCutchen would, but I think if people go a little bit more in depth past the average RBIs and home runs, Joey Votto is a better on-base percentage and slugging percentage, and he also has been a little bit more consistent this season. I mean, either way, I've enjoyed watching both these guys. One of the things about the steroid era ending is that we're seeing a lot more guys with these higher batting averages. Maybe not as many home runs and RBIs, but we're seeing a lot more guys that are hitting above 350, hitting 360. You got 3 guys in the NL off the top of my head that are hitting over 350. Carlos Ruiz, Chooch, the catcher for the Phillies. You have, obviously, Andrew McCutchen, and then David Wright in the New York Mets, who would probably be my third MVP candidate. Carlos Ruiz would fit in there somewhere, and I know I'm forgetting somebody else, but...
Mlkey Cabrera. Mlkey Cabrera.
Yeah, Mlkey Cabrera, that's it. Mlkey Cabrera, who won the All-Star Game MVP tonight, is another candidate that we could look at, because Mlkey Cabrera has really been a great story. Mlkey Cabrera started off with the Yankees, kind of a chubby fourth outfielder, got a lot of hype just because his name was Mlkey, but overall, he really was not a very good player. Got traded to the Atlanta Braves, really didn't do much there. Last season, he found himself with the Kansas City Royals. Last offseason, he was traded to the San Francisco Giants for Jonathan Sanchez, a move that has worked out much better for the San Francisco Giants. And Mlkey Cabrera has really helped revitalize an offense that's leading hitter last year hit like 240-something. That's how bad it was. Obviously, Carlos Beltran was there late, but Aubrey Huff was their leading hitter. Aubrey Huff isn't even a starter for the Giants, or at least not an everyday starter now. He had like 247 for the season. That's how bad the Giants' offense was. They almost made the playoffs, but because of how bad their offense was, they needed some changes. And I did forget Pablo Sandoval, but their second leading hitter was Aubrey Huff, who hit like 247. So it was a disappointing season, to say the least, for the Giants offensively last year. This year it's been revitalized. Unfortunately, this year Tim Lincecum has really struggled for them pitching. He's like 2-8. I look for him to really turn it around in this second half. Before I go to my AL MVP, I've had a few guys ask me who my AL comeback player of the year is. And that I've seen a lot of guys throw out the name Jake Peavy, who is has a 2.96 ERA, was the final vote in for the MLB All-Star Game, and I'll get John back on in a second. He was the final vote in for the AL All-Star Game, and he's having a great season. That being said, though, I'm going to go with his teammate, who I picked before the season, and one of my favorite players to watch, as much as guys hate on him, Adam Dunn. When he first went to Chicago, I thought that this was a match made in heaven with the wind blowing out, everything. I thought that would work out perfectly for Adam Dunn. He had a rough season last year, and while he's only batting 240-something this year, already has 25 home runs. This is a guy that with the Cincinnati Reds had 5 or 6 straight seasons of 40-plus home runs. While he's not a good fielder, he's not a DH, and a lot of other things have not worked out for Adam Dunn throughout his career. He's one of the best overall pure power hitters that the MLB has ever seen, and I've enjoyed watching him because he's just one of those big mashers, and that's kind of what the game is lacking, as we've stated a couple times already. Tonight, Adam Dunn would be my pick for that. And then in the NL, it's an interesting debate as well. Yeah, Steven Strasburg's probably a candidate, but I don't think he had enough service time before missing last year with Tommy John surgery to really qualify. I'm going to go with Yohan Santana. The Mets probably has a good case. this year there are actually a lot of guys that have come back from injuries and things like that. So there's a lot of candidates throughout the MLB that we could look at and think that they are comeback player of the year awards. So we'll readdress this down the stretch in the August-September area. John is back on, and we will continue our list. As the AL MVP, John, I think I know what you're going to go with, but you could surprise me.
There's a winner. Look at that.
My AL MVP, I'm going with Josh Hamilton. Hamilton is tied for 10th in the league with a 308 batting average.
Wait, go ahead. We had Bruce playing the boomer sound, and that's one thing I will not miss from the All-Star game at Tom, but not as much as I will miss Tim McCarver. But, John, who do you have your AL MVP?
There you go. There it is. There's a winner. Look at that.
I got Josh Hamilton in the AL.
Wait.
Hamilton is tied.
Okay, go ahead.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, Josh Hamilton. Hamilton is tied for 10th in the league with a 308 batting average, tied for first in all of baseball at 27 homers. He leads all of baseball with 75 ribbies, and he's probably the leader of one of the best lineups in baseball. He's been on an absolute tear. It's been slow a little the last couple of weeks, but I think he'll still pick it up in the second half and win the AL MVP.
Josh Hamilton, obviously, I touched on his story earlier. I also have him for AL MVP, and John and I did not talk about this before. I know that in 4 of the 5 awards so far, that we are 5 of the 6, I should say, awards so far, we have agreed, but that's just kind of how it goes. Josh Hamilton is a slam dunk candidate, and I heard a couple guys debating this with Marty the other night on the podcast. Josh Hamilton right now is the best player in the MLB. That's about the only thing that Marty got right in that debate. I heard Josh Hamilton this season is batting .308 with 27 home runs, 75 RBIs, has a .380 on-base percentage, and a .635 slugging percentage. A free agent to be, he won the MVP in 2010. So him and Joey Votto, who both won the MVP in 2010, could very well come back and win it this season. Another stupid thing Tim McCarver said during the broadcast, however, is that Josh Hamilton may be get the biggest contract in MLB history. No, a 32-year-old is considered high maintenance because of his drug problem. Yeah, he is not getting a bigger contract than A-Rod or Albert Pujols or any of them. So another stupid statement by Tim McCarver. But, yeah, Josh Hamilton's MVP. Matt Genius, what do you think?
Yeah, I got Josh Hamilton, too, but I got Miguel Cabrera at a close second. He's hitting pretty good this year, too. 557 slugging percentage, a 382 on-base percentage. He's batting .324 with 18 homers and 71 RBI. He has a chance to catch up with Josh Hamilton.
Yeah, he does have a chance, but the way Josh Hamilton looks this season and the lineup that he hits in makes it very easy for him to be an MVP candidate. We'll see, or to win an MVP, I should say. We'll see what happens, but, yeah, AL MVP at this point is probably the most obvious award that we have seen so far. In the AL manager of the, actually no, we'll come back to that. We'll do the players and then we'll do the managers. Rookie of the year in the American League is pretty much a slam dunk, John, but go ahead.
Yeah, I got Mike Trout. Trout currently leads the league with a .341 batting average to go along with 12 homers and 40 ribbies. He also has 26 stolen bases. If this guy keeps this up, he might also be considered for the AL MVP. It'd be a far stretch, but it could become close if he went on a tear. But this guy has been unbelievable to watch. A 20-year-old doing all of this. He's the face of baseball, like Chipper Jones said today. He's going to be one of the better players if he can stay healthy and have a long career in the MLB.
Yeah, the future of the MLB, at least the way that it's being portrayed, is Mike Trout and Bryce Harper. I have some news for you. Mike Trout has had a much better season than Bryce Harper, the chosen one, has had this season. Mike Trout of the Angels has really picked up for Albert Pujols, hitting .341 this year, 12 home runs, 40 RBIs, a .397 on-base percentage, a .562 slugging percentage, a 5-tool player. He can hit, field, run the whole 9 yards. Mike Trout is going to be a star in the MLB for a long time, and this is why I say that the power of the MLB, and Sports Illustrated talked about this in their MLB season preview this year. All the power in the MLB is going to the West Coast between the Texas Rangers, who have just a great team up there and a great farm system, and the Angels, who have a great team, a lot of money, and a farm system. Both those teams have that. Free agents are going to the West now instead of the traditional Red Sox and Yankees. So a lot of the power in the MLB seems to be kind of shifting that way. Matt Genius, have you seen a ton of Mike Trout?
I have not got a chance to see a lot of them. I've heard a lot about them, but I haven't got a chance to actually watch a lot of them.
Yeah, he looks great. If you haven't seen that, he looks like he is going to be one of the best players in the MLB. It's exciting now because we haven't seen a ton of these guys come up in the MLB over the last few years that we look at and think are going to be the best player in the league for a long time to come. And Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, both of them have that possibility. John, who do you have as your NL Rookie of the Year?
For NL Rookie of the Year, I got Bryce Harper. Harper has a .282 batting average, 8 home runs and 25 RBIs. He also has 10 stolen bases. These aren't the flashiest numbers in the world, but he's a main reason for the Nationals being in first place and off to a hot start, also because of their pitching rotation, obviously. And this guy, since he's been called up, has brought life to this lineup. Hustles all the time. Great on defense, except for the play today in the All-Star game. But all around, there's no one even close in the NL I could think of except the pitcher from Arizona, Mlkey. But I think Bryce Harper will run away with this in the second half and get the NL Rookie of the Year.
Bryce Harper may run away with it in the second half, but he's not lighting it up. Bryce Harper's had a really good rookie season. It looks like he's going to be a great player, but he's not having a great season. He really should not have been in the All-Star game. But the clown question, bro, and everything, Bryce Harper is taking off. He is going to be, in a few seasons, probably the face of the game because the Nationals are a bright young team. We'll see what happens with his career. Wade Miley, though, of the Diamondbacks, who I'm going to go with 9-5. We saw him start the ninth inning tonight. 9-5 is a 3.04 ERA, 70 strikeouts, a 1.09 WHIP, and opponents are hitting .232 against Miley this season. I've been really impressed in the limited amount that I've gotten to see Wade Miley. Another guy, in a year where the Diamondbacks have had some struggles with guys like Daniel Hudson, Wade Miley has carried a lot of the load in that rotation for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Final awards we're going to get to are the Manager of the Year, and this is actually a year where the Manager of the Year is going to be a very, very tight race. A lot of times it's like you have to really think about this and just give it to someone who has a good team. In most cases, Manager of the Year awards go to managers who are managing teams that not only had great seasons, but had great seasons and weren't supposed to have great seasons or started slow and came on late, something like that. But John, who are you going to go with as your AL Manager of the Year?
AL Manager of the Year, I'm going with Robin Ventura of the Chicago White Sox. In the beginning of the year, I don't think there was anyone in the whole league or MLB reporters who thought the White Sox would be in first place at the All-Star break. Everyone thought this was Detroit's division to run away with, including myself. He's done a terrific job with his team. With the acquisition of Kevin Youkilis, his team looks like it'll just become better. With guys like Chris Sale, Adam Dunn, Paul Konerko, Kevin Youkilis, I think this team has a legitimate shot to win this division.
I think they do because it's really not a very good division. And Brian, I know you're on the line. I'll get you on in a second. There's a few candidates I have in the AL. Robin Ventura is certainly one of them, and then also Buck Showalter of the Baltimore Orioles, who have been a surprise team. In that tough division, in all likelihood, the Orioles will not hang on and be able to win that division or compete in that division. But Buck Showalter's given a great case. I would go with Robin Ventura, though, because I had the White Sox in dead last coming into this season, and he's got some help. Guys like Adam Dunn have come back. Paul Konerko quietly has just been not a Hall of Fame player maybe, but one of the best players over the last 10 years. He made another All-Star appearance tonight. And then Chris Sale, who was another AL Cy Young candidate, has come out of nowhere to have a great season for them. So certainly he's gotten some help. But Robin Ventura, the expectation before this year he was one of those managers that got brought in to just deal with a team that was going to be a mess for a season or two, while GM Kenny Williams tried to rebuild the team. And he really has turned out to be a pretty solid overall manager. And a lot of times people aren't going to go in depth and watch these games and look at, okay, this guy's made, or this guy's team had a great season, or this guy managing led his team to having a great season. Robin Ventura's been a solid manager. I think Buck Showalter maybe has been the better overall manager, but with the talent that Robin Ventura has there, he's done a great job, and people are surprised to see this team competing as well as they are right now, and I'm certainly one of them, considering I had them in last place. Matt Genius, do you have any candidates you want to add in?
No, I would go with Ventura too. The only reason why I give him the edge over Showalter is because he's actually leading his division, and the Orioles are 7 games behind. So but if the Orioles were within a game or two of their division lead, then I would give it to Showalter.
Yeah, I think that the thing to remember, though, is that record-wise, they're not too far off. It's that they're playing in the AL East, the Orioles, rather than the AL Central, which some people could argue is the weakest division. I don't know. I see your point, though, and Robin Ventura is certainly not a bad decision. John, in the NL, there's quite a few candidates. I come up with 4 candidates, but who would you go with as your candidate?
Yeah, it was a tough decision, but I ended up going with Terry Collins in the New York Mets. Much like Robin Ventura, like we were talking about, no one expected the Mets to contend in the division at all, and he's proven it completely wrong. He made a roster with, no offense to Mets or their fans, with limited talent into a contender, and it's been really one of the best stories in baseball. With the emergence of Dickey, David Wright's playing like an MVP. If they have a strong second half, they could be within this division easily. It's one of the toughest divisions in baseball right now. I think he's done a terrific job with this ball club.
This is a team that lost Jose Reyes. David Wright had kind of fallen off the last few seasons. And I have a few candidates. I really do not have it narrowed down to one guy yet. But Terry Collins reminds me of what Doug Collins does here in Philly with the team in the Sixers that doesn't have a ton of talent, and they lost Lou Williams today, by the way. But a team that doesn't have a ton of talent, but that he gets them to play everything the right way, play better defense than other teams, out-hustle other teams. The Mets run balls out. They do the little things that help you win games. Terry Collins has just done an absolutely great job. A lot of people thought when he came into New York he was kind of cleaning up a mess, and that his style of kind of in-your-face, some people went as far as calling him a jerk. I think that his style has worked out very well with this team. A few other candidates I have are Don Mattingly of the Dodgers. The Dodgers were not a team that John, I know, did pick them to win this division. I thought they were a 3rd or 4th place team with really very little chance to make the playoffs. And I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs. I still think they will end up behind the San Francisco Giants and Arizona Diamondbacks. But, we'll see. He's had a great first half. Clint Hurdle of the Pittsburgh Pirates will win this award running away if the Pirates are able to make the playoffs because of just how long it has been, not only that the Pirates have been to the playoffs, but how long it's been that they've had a winning season. If they somehow do not have a winning season this year, this will be their 20th straight losing season. If he's able to turn that thing around the way he did in Colorado with the Rockies, he will win, I believe, his 2nd Manager of the Year award. My final candidate is Davey Johnson of the Washington Nationals. The Nationals, since they have moved from Montreal in 2004, or 2005, the Nationals have been a team that's really just not been a great team. Early on, and they had Alfonso Soriano. Things looked good. Then they had a few really rough years there in the late days of RFK Stadium and then moving into Nationals Park. Things looked bright, though, with Bryce Harper, Steven Strasburg, Michael Morse, just a great talented young team, Gio Gonzalez, Jordan Zimmerman. The list goes on, Tyler Clippard. I can go on forever about the talent that the Nationals have on that roster, but I think that will kind of work against Davey Johnson because I think out of these 4, he has the most talent on his roster. Davey Johnson, obviously a manager that has been in this game a long time, came back, replaced Jim Riggleman last year when he resigned. So I think that Davey Johnson is certainly in the consideration as well. And if the Pirates fall off, the Dodgers fall off, the Mets fall off, there is a chance that Davey Johnson could get this award. But I think people tend to look at teams that we did not expect to be here. And I didn't expect the Nationals to be as good as they are, and I still don't think that they're going to win this division. I thought they'd win 84, 85 games, though. Something I could not say about the Dodgers, something I could not say about the Pirates, and something I certainly did not say about the New York Mets before this season. So I think that that will work against them. Anthony Rizzo is absolutely taking the MLB by storm now. Obviously, he's not going to
get the pitch. There's a high drive, deep right center, way back. Mlkey out of here. It's off the wall. 1 run is in. 2 runs are in. A third man scores. And look at this star. Way back. Mlkey out of here. Hey! Hey! He did it again. He did it again. Oh. The game is tied. The game is tied. Holy cow. How about that? Here it is. There goes a runner. Hey, a line drive off the pitcher's glove over. Cubs win. What a lucky break. The good Lord wants the Cubs to win. A line drive deflected by Smith to the shortstop Owen. And it's a double play. 1 ball, 2 strikes. A pitch. Hey, Cubs win the division. Cubs win the division. Cubs win the division.
It has been a long time since that has happened in Chicago, but Anthony Rizzo right now is giving Cubs fans a sign that maybe in the next few seasons, as Theo Epstein tries to turn around this team, that maybe Anthony Rizzo could be a key cog in helping to get this team back to the playoffs. So far, since Anthony Rizzo has been called up, and he's a first baseman, and as you saw tonight, Brian LaHare of the Cubs is a first baseman as well, who's in the All-Star game. And he's kind of come out of nowhere, surprised a lot of people, but he's had a great season. So there's somewhat of a roadblock for Rizzo at first, but I can tell you over the next few years, Rizzo will win that position because he's younger and the talent he is expected to bring. They got him from the San Diego Padres. I know we talked about him a few weeks earlier, but he's really kept it up so far. In 12 games this season, he's hitting .354 with 4 home runs, 9 RBIs. Only 5 strikeouts. He looks impressive. He has a slugging percentage of .688 and an OPS over 1,000. So far, so good for Anthony Rizzo, John.
Yeah, no question. He looks like the future for Chicago. If I'm Chicago, I think about it pretty hard about moving LaHare close to the deadline to get more reps for Rizzo. I know LaHare's been playing in right and left field a little bit, but I think you got to move LaHare, and LaHare's also 29. I'm pretty sure Rizzo's in his low 20s, mid to low 20s. But this guy can just rake. He proved it in AAA with some unbelievable stats. He's going to be the future of Chicago, and if they want to contend, they're going to make him the franchise player.
Yeah, and I think that Anthony Rizzo is going to help bring this Cubs team back. Now, it's going to take a lot. They still have Alfonso Soriano's contract, a lot of bad contracts on that team. But Anthony Rizzo looks bright for the future of this Cubs team. I mean, there's not a ton I can say about Anthony Rizzo because I've certainly seen him, but he's only played 12 games this season. So far, it looks good. I think that he's probably not going to be as good as Mike Trout or Bryce Harper, but some of the home runs I've seen him in the minor leagues, I think he looks like he's going to be a stud for them, John.
Yeah, no question. I think he'll be a superstar. Like you said, I don't think he'll be a Trout or Harper, but he'll be right up there. He's proven he just needs to get a little better on defense, and I think he'll be a top-notch first baseman.
All right, what we're going to do in a second is we're going to run down the standings as soon as they open up on my slow-ass computer. We're going to run down the standings. Again, one note I do want to pass along is that New York Mets pitcher Dylan G, and I'm reading this off the ESPN MLB thing because obviously I'm on the show right now, and I haven't been getting all the text and everything of all the MLB breaking news. But Mets pitcher Dylan G has been hospitalized for a blood clot in his artery. We'll try and keep you updated if anything else breaks. But as most medical stuff goes, I wouldn't expect much to break over the course of the next few hours, or not even that long, that we are on the show. So, John, we're going to run. Can you open up the MLB standings, actually?
Yeah, I got them right now.
Okay, go ahead and read off the AL East for me.
All right, in the American League East, in first place are the New York Yankees with the 52-33 record. In second place and 7 games back are the Baltimore Orioles with the 45-40 record. In third place and 7.5 games back is Tampa Bay Rays with a 45-41 record. In fourth place and 9.5 games out is the Boston Red Sox with the 43-43 record. And in last place are the Toronto Blue Jays, 43-43, and are also 9.5 games out.
Yeah, so far in this AL East, with all the things that the Yankees have had go negatively with them, with losing Pettit, losing Sabathia, now they're going to be back, losing Mariano Rivera, people have stepped in and made it work for the Yankees. I picked them to win the World Series at the beginning of the year, and I had my questions after we saw some of these injuries, but right now it doesn't look like they're going to be fading away anytime soon. They have a 7-game lead over the Orioles, who have been a great team in this first half, led by Adam Jones. The pitching with guys like Jason Hamels has been surprisingly good. And I think that the Orioles are going to be a team that ends up probably just over 500, unfortunately, because I think that they're not good enough to compete long-term in this division, at least this season. But they've been an exciting team to watch, and it's a fun thing to see this division be as competitive as it is, because we always used to say that this was the best division in baseball, but what we were really referring to was the Yankees and Red Sox. Then the Rays came along, and now we see the Blue Jays at 43-43, and the Orioles at 45-40 are right in the thick of things going into the All-Star break. Now, the Red Sox and the Blue Jays are 9.5 out. Either one of those could still potentially win this division or go to the playoffs via the wild card. There are now 2 wild cards, so anything can happen, John.
Yeah, definitely. I think this division will really come down to who has the better trade deadline and makes the most moves. New York, though, I think they have the best chance right now to win it. With a 52-33 record, they've been playing well without some key guys like you named, Pettit, CC, and Mo. They haven't been playing with their key pitchers. This lineup's just so good. They can carry a poor pitching staff. And if they can get a Garza or a Greinke at the deadline, watch out for the Yankees. They might win it all.
They have said they're not interested in Cole Hamels. That's something I've heard. The Phillies, he's out there. And we'll touch on Cole Hamels in a little bit about what his future may hold, as we are not far from the MLB trade deadline. I remember last year when I was doing the show, during the show, one of my friends, Poyne, called in and said that the Mets, he's a Mets fan. He lives in Queens. I know him from the other show I do. He said that he called in and told me that K-Rod has been traded from the Mets to the Brewers, so we're not far from seeing some of these trades happen. We'll break down some of the potential trades later on in the show. Looking at the NL Central, though, like you said, the White Sox are on top. The Indians are a team that is kind of going under the radar right now. Everyone's looking at the White Sox and the Tigers. The Indians are right in the thick of things. Kansas City, if it would not have been for such a putrid start, I think they were like 6-20 or something like that, 3-16 early on. They're 37-47, 9.5 out. I wouldn't count them out in a winnable division where no one has really taken a ton of charge. I know the White Sox are 47-38. I don't see them holding on. Now, I do see the Tigers ultimately winning this division, and Minnesota is going to be one of the biggest sellers at the deadline. We saw Joe Mauer play first base tonight, and I think that is a sign of things to come. Joe Mauer's days as catcher might be numbered, and that might be a lot easier to have happen now moving into first base, with Justin Morneau likely out of the picture at the end of this season, or at the trade deadline, I should say, and that's something I've heard a lot of people talk about, John.
Yeah, I think it'll come down to Detroit and Chicago in the AL Central this year. Cleveland could be there. They're in second place right now. They could very well make a run also. But Chicago, Detroit, I'm looking out for. Detroit's offense is getting going. Get Verlander, get Fister back to their normal self. They could very well win this division.
they could win this division. Like you mentioned, not only Verlander, I think Verlander's had a great season. Doug Fister's kind of been disappointing this season. He is one of the most underrated pitchers in the game and was really good after being acquired from Seattle. And we'll talk to Brian in a second. I didn't forget about Brian, but he was very good after being acquired last year from Seattle, and he really stepped up and helped get them to the ALCS despite Justin Verlander not pitching as well in that series against the Yankees. In the West Division, Texas is leading at 52-34 with the Angels making a late first-half push, now only 4 games out at 48-38. I think that this is going to be a great finish between these two teams. Oakland at 43-43 is hanging in there a little bit more than I thought, 9 games out. And then Seattle is 36-51, 16.5 out. Brian, are you on the line? All right, yeah. I guess he dropped.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. What do you think about Seattle's season so far?
To be expected. I mean, they have to be you see the numbers. They're batting, I think as a team, batting twos with $198 at home, something like that. It's stupid, man. There's no way that a Major League Baseball team could be batting so horrible at home. And then the teams that come here actually bat better than the teams that are actually at home. You know? But what more can I say about that team? Yeah. It's just shitty offense, basically.
Yeah, I feel bad for you because that Seattle team has been... They had 1 year in there where I think Mike Nargo was the manager in 2007 where they were even close to competing.
Should have kept him.
Yeah, and then he decided to leave. Ichiro's really been the only bright spot for that team, and Felix Hernandez. But things are going to get better, though. I think Justin Ackley looks good for them, and a few other of their younger players. Jesus Montero's had a nice season, and Michael Pineda, or as some New York fans might start calling him Michael Pinata, hasn't been exactly lighting it up for the Yankees, considering he hasn't thrown a pitch and missed the whole season with that team. So things look like they might get better in Seattle. John, what do you think about this whole division?
The whole division is coming down to Texas and L.A. flat out, I think. With L.A., with the emergence of Mike Trout, if they can get Pujols back to himself, Trumbo, and this rotation, C.J. Wilson's quietly having one of the best seasons in baseball right now, pitching-wise. Him and Weaver, get Dan Herron back. I think he's on the disabled list right now. If they can get another pitcher at the deadline, this could come down to maybe the last week for this division.
Yeah, it's going to come down to the last week or two. I think Texas will win because, in the end, with 2 wild cards now, Los Angeles is going to make a push because with 2 wild cards now, you're not guaranteed to go to the divisional series. You have to play a 1-game playoff with the other team that wins a wild card to determine if you're actually going to go to the playoffs. I think that it's likely that Texas wins this division and Los Angeles goes ahead and wins a wild card. We'll see what happens, but I think Texas right now is the best team in baseball. And hearing rumors that a team that has a stacked lineup the way they do, Josh Hamilton, Nelson Cruz, Michael Young, Elvis Andrews, Mike Napoli, Mitch Moreland, the list goes on. This is just a scary good lineup. And pitching that has been led by Yu Darvish, Matt Harrison. They've had a great season. There's a chance now that they could get Cole Hamels. That idea is absolutely sick. I think it's worth them giving up a few prospects, and even if it only is a 2 or 3 month thing, because they've been to the World Series 2 years in a row now and lost. They were within a pitch of winning the World Series. They were within Nelson Cruz being smart and diving to make the catch, or at least keeping the ball in front of him, of potentially winning that World Series last year. They were down to the last out twice in Game 6. So it's certainly been a disappointment the last 2 seasons for the Texas Rangers. They look like they're a team that has a very good chance to go back to the World Series for a 3rd year in a row. It's a very tough thing to do, but adding Cole Hamels in, a guy who's been a tremendous playoff performer for that team, if the Phillies do ultimately make him available, and we'll get to that in a little bit, that would make the most sense for Texas to go after, John. Would you give up one or two blue-chip prospects for not a guarantee to win a World Series, but in an AL where the Yankees have questionable pitching at times, especially with some of the injuries now, the Angels have really good pitching that you might need to match up with, the Tigers have Justin Verlander, they are kind of lacking that ace, John.
Yeah, if they can get Hamels, I'd do it, but you also got to look at this. Adrian Beltre, Michael Young, Nelson Cruz, a couple other guys on this lineup. It's getting a little old. So I don't know if I would be willing to trade 2 or 3 very good prospects and then risk the chance of Cole Hamels leaving and just pitching 2 or 3 months at Texas. But if they can get him and sign him to an extension right away, I'd do it in a heartbeat if I'm Texas.
If they can get him and sign him to an extension, which is possible, it would be kind of a new thing to have a team have a negotiating window during a trade deadline trade, but we'll see what happens. The Phillies are going to want a huge return for Cole Hamels, and if they're going to get that return for Cole Hamels, he may have to sign that extension because they're likely going to want at least 2 blue-chip prospects, which the Texas Rangers have, and then 2 other B-type prospects, and that is a lot to give up when not only is there a chance he could leave, and there's a chance he could stay, too, but there was a chance with that with Cliff Lee, and it didn't work out too well. So there's a chance that he could leave at the end of the season, and what they used to be able to fall back on is if he leaves at the end of the season, then you get 2 first-round draft picks because he's a Type A free agent. That's not in the new CBA anymore, so that's another reason why some of these bigger trades may not be made, and the Phillies may not make him available. Another team may step in. We'll get into that a little bit more. John, let's head over to the NL and talk about the NL East.
All right. In Washington Nationals are in first place with a 49-34 record. In second place are the Atlanta Braves with a 46-39 record and are 4 games back. The New York Mets are in third place with a 46-40 record and 4.5 games out. The Miami Marlins are in fourth place with a 41-44 record and 9 games out. And in last place are the Philadelphia Phillies with a 37-50 record and are 14 games out.
And as a Phillies fan, this has been I've watched worse seasons, but this has probably been the most disappointing because all the talent that's on this team, they've won 5 straight divisions. I mean, obviously I'm younger, but I've watched the Phillies since like 1999, maybe even a little bit earlier than that, not much earlier, but I've been a Phillies fan since I was 3 years old. I've watched some of the most horrendous baseball teams you have ever seen. But looking at some of the talent that is on this team, and I've kind of become accustomed to winning. They didn't make the playoffs in my lifetime until I was like 13 or 14 years old, and then they went 4 or 5 straight years. I guess it was more like when I was 11 years old, but they went 4 or 5 straight years. They won a World Series. They went back to a World Series. They became a big market team where they got guys like Cliff Lee, Roy Halladay. They were able to keep Ryan Howard and Chase Utley, lock up Jimmy Rollins and Shane Victorino, find closers like Brad Lidge, now Jonathan Papelbon. It's been sickening with this team. That being said, though, John and I, on and off the air, have had a lot of discussions about the Cole Hamels thing. And again, we'll get to a little bit more about Cole Hamels as soon as we finish going over the division. We look around the rest of this division. Miami's been really a mediocre team with all the hype around them this offseason. I didn't buy into it. I thought that they would maybe compete for a wild card, and I think I had them winning a wild card maybe, or just out of one, but I didn't think that they were going to light it up like a lot of people were expecting. They haven't. 41-44, 9 games out. The Mets at 46-44, 4.5 games out. It is a great story to see this team playing as well as they have. Well, as a Phillies fan, it might not be, but as just an observer of baseball, it's been kind of cool to see a team like this with not really a ton of talent at all compete like this. I just don't think that they have enough to make the playoffs unless a guy like Jason Bay is able to come back and really get going. Their bullpen's still kind of suspect. we'll see what happens with the Mets. I tend to think that they'll end up with about 81 to 85 wins, and considering if there are people saying they win 65 games before the season, not necessarily a terrible thing. Atlanta in second place, 46-39, 4 games out of the Washington Nationals. The Washington Nationals are one of the teams that is destined to be one of the biggest second-half disappointments, and here's why. We look up and down this team at how young and talented this team is, and I'm not going to go with the, well, they've never been there thing as my excuse for why I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs and why I think the Braves are ultimately going to win this division. But Steven Strasburg has the innings limit. Jordan Zimmerman has not pitched, or this will be his second season where he's pitched a ton of innings. Gio Gonzalez hasn't really been through the thick of this type of pennant race where he has to throw a ton of innings. And I think that just the wear and grind on some of these guys and some of the relievers that have to throw extra innings this year to help this team try and compete for the playoffs, it will really, really wear on them down the stretch. And I think that they will be a team that is kind of going to fade to be more like an 85 to 87 win team. And that may be good enough to win the wild card. I don't think it's going to be good enough to hold off the Atlanta Braves, who have quietly had a great first half. 46-39, 4 games out. I called them to win the World Series and win a wild card at the beginning of the season, and I almost picked them to win the division. I was stupid and let people talk me out of it. I picked the Phillies. That is not happening, and anyone that's still trying to tell you that could happen is really, really, really stupid. But the Braves look like a team that in Chipper Jones' final season could very well make the playoffs, and if they get some pitching healthy, Tim Hudson, and they're looking to add guys. Zack Greinke has come up with the Braves. Atlanta could very well make a run, and I think they win this division, John. Who do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you also. I think Atlanta will win this division. Just like you, I also picked Philadelphia in the beginning, but you picked Atlanta to win the World Series. But with that said, I think Atlanta will win it. Washington will be in a close second, and I think that Miami will come in third.
We'll see what happens. I think that the Nets will probably finish above Miami, and who knows? I still think with all the talent on the Phillies team, and they've just gotten Ryan Howard and Chase Utley back, it's kind of hard to believe that team could finish in last place. But then you watch this team lifeless. It's not just that they missed Ryan Howard and Chase Utley. It is that we've seen some of the guys on this team just be major disappointments. Shane Victorino has been absolutely horrendous this season. He can pack his bags because in all likelihood in a week or two he probably won't be wearing a Phillies uniform, and if he still is, then in 3 months when he is a free agent, he won't be. Jimmy Rogers just got an extension. He's been disappointing. John Mayberry Jr. has been disappointing. Hunter Pence, I have all these people say, oh, look at his stats. Hunter Pence has 16 home runs. He's having a good year. Hunter Pence is having one of the most disappointing seasons throughout the MLB, not only at the plate, because he is one of the most unclutch hitters in the MLB this season, but, man, in the field, this guy last year came in, he had a good arm, everything. John, how many plays have you seen where Hunter Pence has just misjudged balls that go over his head, off his glove? He's going to decide not to slide, and the Mets are going to win in a walk-off. Hunter Pence has had a terrible season.
Yeah. I think he has one of the worst baseball IQs all around. He's just not trying to be mean or anything, but he's one of the dumbest players that I've ever seen. Just the way he approaches everything. On offense, he's got to lead or be in the top, running or hitting into double plays. He's just not a very smart player at all. He's an all-pole hitter. His stats are good, like you said. I think he's hitting 287, 288, something like that, homers, and he's got good RBIs also. But he's in the field, he's looked awful this year.
Yeah, and honestly, hitting-wise, and Shane Victorino is one of the worst baseball IQs to it. It's been good. He's been a great player for this team, and I still think Hunter Pence could very well come back next season and have a much better season. But he's not a smart baseball player, and this is a team full of guys that and I heard somebody say this the other day, and it pretty much summed it up. This team can be down 2-1 in the ninth inning with one out. They need a run. They need a base runner, and you'll have a guy go up there and swing at the first pitch and pop it straight up to the second baseman. There's no patience. It's not Charlie Manuel's fault. Charlie Manuel has done what he can with this team. He's helped guys like Juan Pierre and Mike Fontenot and Ty Wigginton make good impacts to the team. If anything, it's Ruben Amaro's fault for just not investing. He's invested too much into a few guys, and he hasn't been able to provide the type of depth that is necessary that even guys like Brian Cashman with the Yankees and what Theo Epstein did with the Red Sox understood is you need to continue to supplement prospects, bring in some role players, and he has not done that. And I really think, it's tough to say he's done a terrible job because he's acquired Cliff Lee twice, Roy Halladay, Roy Oswalt, Hunter Pence. He hasn't done a good job here, and people continue. I get mad every time I hear someone try and say that Ruben Amaro is the best general manager in baseball because he absolutely is not.
Yeah, no, he's not at all. If it's anyone, it's Tampa Bay or Texas. The way they just lose players, but yet get people in the farm. Ruben Amaro, he makes the big moves, but he's not smart when it comes to giving extensions, locked up. I mean, the Phillies aren't going to have enough money to get anyone unless they let Hamels walk. Quite honestly, that's the only way. Shane Victorino's a goner practically. If they can, trade him for maybe a young arm, young bullpen, something. Get something out of him. This isn't the best time to trade him because, like you said, he's not playing good baseball at all. But the Phillies, it's a very hard. They got the talent, like you said. The bullpen's horrendous. Clutch hitting's been a problem. I know everyone's saying, Utley, Howard, they're coming back. They'll do something. But I think the Phillies have been, 2-9 with Utley or 1-10, something like that. They haven't been trying to do
it hasn't been Chase Utley's fault. It's been the horrendous bullpen. And this is what I meant with the Nationals. Antonio Bastardo logged a bunch of innings last year. Michael Stutz logged a bunch of innings. And through middle of August, these guys were lights out in this Phillies bullpen. Down the stretch and early in the playoffs, before the Phillies were out by the St. Louis Cardinals, I don't even want to talk about that. But before they were out, and even coming into this season, Antonio Bastardo's been a mess because your arm needs a year to not only adjust to the innings, but just to go through another year of having even less than, like if you throw 160 innings, the next year in your second season you need to come back and throw 140. Then your arm is ready to kind of do that, throw 170, 180. Obviously pitchers don't usually get up to that many, but I'm just saying like a number, I'm throwing numbers out there. That is the type of thing that a pitcher needs to do, and that's what a lot of bullpen guys don't get because Antonio Bastardo's been a mess, and Michael Stutz is having shoulder surgery. So it's been a mess. We'll get to Cole Hamels, like I've said 69 times now, in a second. But, John, in the NL Central, who do you have? Or go through the standings. Sorry.
All right. The National League Central. In first place are the Pittsburgh Pirates with a 48-37 record. This is the first time in 15 years they've been in first place. In second, at the All-Star break, I should say. In second place are the Cincinnati Reds with a 47-38 record and 1 game back. In third place are the St. Louis Cardinals with a 46-40 record and 2.5 games out. Next is Milwaukee with a 40-45 record, 8 games out. After them are the Chicago Cubs with a 33-52 record and 15 games out. And in last place are the Houston Astros with a 33-53 record and 15.5 games back.
Yeah, and I saw a debate in the chat room, who's worse, Astros or Cubs? It's the Astros.
Yeah.
This is a team that John and I, when we made our season predictions, it was the first time we had ever worked together. When we made our season predictions before this season, we talked about how the Astros, I really had them having one of the worst records in the history of the MLB. I had them winning, they have 33 wins now. I think I had them winning about 52 games the whole season. They've been a little bit better than that, but they will fade in this division very quickly. Jose Altuve's been a bright spot. He was in the All-Star game, but there's just not enough staying power, and they're probably going to trade Wandy Rodriguez at some point. Brett Myers could be a candidate to be dealt as well. Carlos Lee was traded to Miami Marlins last week, so they're going to be in a 5-year rebuilding process in Houston throughout the next few seasons. And then the Cubs are not quite on a 5-year rebuilding process, but they're on a 3 or 4-year one, 15 games out as well. Those teams are out of it. The Brewers are just in kind of one of those years where you lose your big-time free agent, Prince Fielder, one of the big boppers in your lineup, and it looks like they're just kind of one of those off years. Ryan Braun playing in the All-Star game, quite honestly, I'm not biased against Ryan Braun, but it pissed me off tonight because here's a guy that failed the drug test last year and found a little hole in the system, and the MLB really could not find a way to combat what he said. He got to play, and he's in the All-Star game and being celebrated again, and I don't know, I just am not a fan of that. St. Louis, 46-40, can make a run, no doubt. They're going to have to get some better pitching in the second half from Chris Carpenter and Adam Wainwright, and Lance Lynn will likely have to continue to do what he does. And I mean, they've had a few performers in the first half that I think have overachieved, which is one of the reasons I do not see them winning this division, because Carlos Beltran has been playing like it's a 2005 playoffs this season, and he's back with the Houston Astros. And then, who's the other guy? Rafael Furcal is like an injury waiting to happen. I'm not trying to find reasons why the Cardinals won't win this division, but Rafael Furcal has a long injury history. He's had a great season this year, but you kind of get worried that he gets an injury or nagging something that slows him down in the second half in his mid-30s at this point. So we'll see what happens. I'm not saying that they couldn't make it. They still don't have a great bullpen, but it's certainly better than what it was last year, and they found a way to get in last year. So we'll see what happens. Cincinnati, a game out at 47-38, and then obviously the Pirates are leading. I think Cincinnati wins this division. I had them winning the division at the beginning of this year. Matt Latos is a guy that they acquired in the offseason. He came on strong towards the end of this first half. And John, do you think the Pirates hold on and Andrew McCutchen wins MVP, or that we see Joey Votto win MVP and the Reds are a team that could actually make a good run in the playoffs?
Cincinnati, I think, has a much better chance than Pittsburgh. I think Votto will MVP, like I said earlier. But watch out for Pittsburgh. They've been linked to really good outfielders. One, Justin Upton, which I have no clue why the Diamondbacks have put on the block, and the second would be Carlos Quentin. If they can land one of those power-hitting outfielders, watch out for the Pirates. But ultimately, I think it will be Cincinnati or St. Louis, and I think Cincinnati will win the division, and they could very well make a playoff run.
They had the starting pitching to do it. Bronson Arroyo, Matt Latos, and Johnny Cueto. We'll see what happens. The back end of that bullpen, that might be a consideration that they do, adding like a setup man type piece. Aroldis Chapman has looked great. The Cuban Missile has looked great for them this season. And Pittsburgh, it's great to see. Let's be honest. If Pittsburgh has a winning record, then this season is a success because they haven't had one in however long. And just to get over that and get rid of that streak and kind of set a path for the next few seasons is a good thing. James McDonald should have been in the All-Star game. He is one of the best pitchers in the MLB this season, as an ERA right around 2.5. Great season out of James McDonald. We'll see what happens. And A.J. Burnett's had a good season. I think that the Pirates are a team, though, that is not going to fade like they did. If you remember last season at this time, the Pittsburgh Pirates were in first place at the All-Star break last year, and they ended up with a losing record in 4th or 5th place. And it was really a disappointing thing because they knew last year, and I remember hearing the Pirates play-by-play announcer say this, that they were kind of playing off some things that they knew were not going to continue to happen. They had guys playing way over their heads, and it came down the second half and did not work out. This year, they do not believe that. James McDonald stepped up. They have Eric Bedard in that rotation. They finally have, and A.J. Burnett, they finally have some guys that have been there and had success in the past that have made things work for this team. Andrew McCutchen, I thought he was going to be a really good player, but Andrew McCutchen has gone way past the expectations that I had for him. Just overall, this Pirates team, it's nice to see teams like the Pirates and the Royals finally get good again because it has been a long time. And believe it or not, both of these teams during the 80s and early 90s, well, at least in the Pirates case, were the Royals in the late 70s and throughout the 80s were one of the best teams in the MLB. And then the Pirates throughout the 80s with Willie Sardar, guys like that, and then Barry Bonds were great teams. And they just have not been there. And both of those are good baseball cities, especially Pittsburgh is just a great overall sports city. As much as I'm not a fan of their teams, they're a great overall sports city. And it would be cool to see the Pirates compete again and see that nice ballpark finally have the playoffs. And they're a team to watch for Carlos Quentin, if I didn't say that already. John, let's go on to the West.
In the West, in first place for the Los Angeles Dodgers with a 47-40 record. In second place and a half a game out is the San Francisco Giants with a 46-40 record. In third place for the Arizona Diamondbacks with a 42-43 record and 4 games out. Next is San Diego, 34-53 and 13 games out. And in last place for the Colorado Rockies with a 33-52 record and 13 games back.
Yeah, the Rockies have been a mess. The Padres continue to be a mess. So both those teams will be sellers. It'll be interesting to see if the Rockies trade or the Padres trade away Carlos Quentin because they finally do have some pop with him. And I believe that they think Kevin Towers, the GM there, thinks that they can lock him up and maybe try and finally put something together for the future there because it's been a few years since they've competed with like the Rockies back in the day. And then the Rockies have some pieces that have just not worked out, and we'll see what they do at the deadline as well. The top 3 teams, I think it's a toss-up. All of them are in this race. Arizona's a game under 500. They still look really good. I don't know right now the way the Giants are playing that I'd pick against the Giants, but Arizona, 4 games back, they're certainly right in the thick of things. If Daniel Hudson can figure things out, and if Wade Miley continues to pitch like this, and maybe they make an addition at the deadline, they can compete. San Francisco looks great going into the deadline, and then it is almost a deadline, but I mean the All-Star break. Tim Lincecum has been 2-8 in their half game out, so that shows you how good they've been because guys like Matt Cain have stepped up. Madison Bumgarner was my breakout player of the season, and he's had a great year for the Giants. And the questions for them are going to be at the back end of the bullpen after they lost Brian Wilson prior to the season. The Dodgers are at 47-40, but Matt Kemp has been out. Andre Ethiers missed some time, and I think with guys like A.J. Ellis, they've somewhat overachieved early on in the season. D. Gordon has had a rough go of things as of late as well. So, John, do you think, I know you picked the Dodgers, and it surprised me when you did before the season, but you looked like a genius for the first half of the season or almost that long. Do you think that the Dodgers are able to hold on and win this division?
Again, it'll come down to the trade deadline and getting some pitching. But right now, they've been playing halfway decent without Kemp. If they get him back healthy to his old self, they could very well compete and end up winning it. San Francisco, I think, will be in second or first. It'll be very close. In Arizona, they're a strange club because they could either run away with this division or just fall apart completely. With rumors going around that they might be shopping Justin Upton. If that's the case, you can kiss their season goodbye because he's a key part to that offense.
Yeah, I have no idea why they'd be shopping Justin Upton. They have him under contract for a few more seasons at a team-friendly contract. It would make no sense to trade him. You get a pretty solid return, but he's not even having that good of a season. It would make no sense to trade him right now. We'll see what happens with Justin Upton. That kind of puzzled me when I saw that was out there. So who are you going with again to win the West?
To win the West, I'm sticking with the Dodgers.
All right, well, we'll see what happens. That might be actually the most fun division to watch down the stretch, and it's really one that people are sleeping on. But there's 3 teams that are really competitive in that division and really have a chance to make a run down the stretch, and we'll see what happens with who makes a deadline. Do you have a feeling the Dodgers will be one of those teams that comes out of nowhere and makes or acquires someone at the deadline that maybe we weren't expecting them to? That being said, I'm not sure that they have a ton of prospects to deal with. We'll see what happens with the Dodgers, but they've exceeded my expectations to this point. John, with Cole Hamels, this has been a thing, especially if you are here in Philly, and John's not in Philly, but within the Phillies area in Virginia, right, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just been a ton of buzz about the Phillies and Cole Hamels, who not only let me set the stage for this. Cole Hamels is 10-4. He's won a World Series MVP here. The whole 9 yards. Cole Hamels has been one of my favorite players to watch. I kind of met Cole Hamels, got his autograph once. Good guy. No issues with Cole Hamels personally or as a pitcher or player or anything. That being said, though, Cole Hamels has a 3.03 ERA, and he's a free agent at the end of this season. And people are talking about Cole Hamels like Cole Hamels is Cy Young. Like Cole Hamels is going to get a 6 or 7 year deal at $25 million. And the Phillies team, that there's a lot of questions if Cole Hamels would want to stay here with how they're playing right now. There's a lot of questions with, will they go to that length for a pitcher, which really 6 or 7 year deals historically have not been great for pitchers. Will they pay that much for another pitcher when they already have Halladay and Lee there? And they have some questions offensively for the future at third base, left field, center field, maybe right field. Who knows? And certainly some questions in the bullpen. Will they go to all those lengths? And Cole Hamels with the Phillies just having a horrendous first half. We've heard a lot of rumors over the past few weeks that there's teams in the Texas Rangers, according to Buster Olney of ESPN, have become the favorite to land Cole Hamels. That the Phillies have kind of said to teams, look, what would you be willing to give us to kind of, as they say, set the groundwork for things, but they have not made him available yet. They haven't really started bidding with teams for Cole Hamels services yet. If the Phillies continue to do this or continue to play the way they have and they fade, then in all likelihood Cole Hamels will be traded or at least offered around to teams. So here's the decision Ruben Amaro is faced with. The Phillies are at $172 million payroll right now. Cole Hamels makes $15 million this season. If they were to give him a long-term deal at the price that he wanted, it'd be somewhere between $20 to $25 million, probably closer to $23, $24, $25 million over the next 5 to 7 seasons. So if Cole Hamels were to do that, you would invest a ton of money into another pitcher. You'd backload the contract so you could afford it, and that's what people have told me, some sources that I have, that they would backload the contract for Cole Hamels to kind of make it more affordable in the present time than backload it in the back. I'm not a huge fan of that because in the back end of those deals is when the players are not as productive, and that makes them harder to trade. But they would do that and kind of say, we're putting all of the chips in the pitcher's basket or whatever, putting all the chips in for the pitchers, and we're just going to kind of ignore all the holes that we have and hope that things work themselves out. And as much as I like Cole Hamels, the Phillies have an absolutely horrendous minor league system, especially talent-wise in hitting and just everyday players. They have some pitchers, which is another reason why I'm about to say the Phillies not only should, they almost need to trade Cole Hamels, John.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We've touched on this a couple times in the last couple weeks, but they need young prospects, like you said, preferably third base or left field. They need them badly. They don't have much talent. What they could do, I know we're not talking about it now, but trade Shane Victorino this year and then maybe make it Dominic Brown in center next. If they can do that and then trade Hamels and get some prospects, Major League ready prospects almost, like 1 to 2 years. Like they're going after the Rangers third baseman, or Alt, I think it is. Yeah,
it's Alt.
I saw him in the Futures game. He looks like a legitimate player. There have been talks with him going to Detroit for Castellanos, the third baseman also from Detroit, who's a very promising prospect. I also saw him in the Futures game, and he looked very well. But the Phillies, they almost have to trade him. They can't afford to make another bad contract. Cole Hamels is good, like we've been saying, but I don't think he's even close to making $25 million a year. If I was the Phillies, the most I'd give Cole Hamels is probably anywhere from $16 to $18 million. I wouldn't go over 20 with Cole Hamels.
That's what his value is. I understand that, and I agree with you. I might give him $20, $21 million. Cole Hamels' lowest career ERA is 2.80. Cliff Lee's lowest career ERA is like the 2.30s, and he got 25, and the contract looks awful. Justin Verlander and Jared Weaver Justin Verlander, let's start with him, has won an MVP and a Cy Young, and prior to that, though, he got an $85 million team-friendly deal from the Tigers. Same thing with Weaver. He got a team-friendly deal right around $85, $90 million with the Angels. Cole Hamels is not, and people keep saying, well, you got to keep the lefty. What the hell difference does it make if you're a lefty or a righty? I don't understand why there is such an emphasis on having all these left-handed pitchers. Like, it makes a difference. When you're talking about paying $25 million, that player sure as hell better be worth the correct amount, or actually be worth that amount of money. And Cole Hamels, I hate to say it, is not worth even close to a 6 or 7 year deal making $20 to $25 million a season. And the Phillies need prospects. And this is what I keep saying to people. All these people continue to tell me, oh, you're not a real fan. He won us a World Series. I understand that, and I was there, and I was there in the much harder times, which most of these bandwagon fans were not. And I continue to tell these people that it's not. They ask me, oh, why do you want to get rid of Cole Hamels? Why don't you just get rid of Cliff Lee or Roy Halladay? Roy Halladay's injured. Cliff Lee's older and doesn't have as much of value. It's a terrible contract. And Cole Hamels, I don't want to get rid of Cole Hamels, but I want this team to win. And even if I wasn't a Phillies fan, I'd be saying this because there are so many holes on this team. If you look around this team at the outfield, let's start there. Hunter Pence makes $11 million this season. And he is not worth a long-term contract. He's one more year of arbitration, and he'll be a free agent. So they'll have to either trade him or let him walk or give him a long-term contract. He's not worth it. I think we figured that out. Shane Victorino's going to walk after this season. Dominic Brown, like you said, former five-tool, supposed to be, I think he was a top 5 prospect by Baseball America, has been a massive disappointment in the MLB in his brief time up here, and since he's gone back to AAA, he's been disappointing. He has so much talent. I've seen this guy at the MLB level and at the AAA level. Ton of talent. I just don't know if it's going to work out. And you can't bank that it's going to work out when it doesn't look like it will. John Mayberry Jr. left field is a 4th outfielder. Placido Polanco is going to be a free agent. You need another third baseman, and that's why Olt from the Rangers, that would make sense. Shortstop Jimmy Rollins, yeah, you just gave him a 3 to 4 year extension depending on how many games he plays. He's 33 years old. Chase Utley at second base is 33, very old 33 with constant chronic knee problems. He'll be off the books after next season. You need a long-term second baseman. I thought Freddie Galvis may be that, but he's not a great hitter, and then he had a positive drug test, and it's just really kind of turned me off to Freddie Galvis. Ryan Howard will be the long-term answer at first base unless the MLB decides that after this season, when they'll be interleague play all year, that they're going to have to make a decision. Either they'll have the DH or they in both leagues, or they won't. Now, knowing Bud Selig, they'll probably just leave it how it is, and it won't make any sense. But that could be coming, and Ryan Howard, long-term, could simply be a DH, so you either are going to need a DH or a first baseman. Carlos Sweet on the plate, having a career hitting over to 350, but he's 33 years old, and you know catchers by 34, 35 are pretty much shot. The pitching rotation, the bullpen, I mean, the list goes on. And there's not really anyone to replace these guys. It's an old team, and I want what's best for the long-term future of this team. And trading Cole Hamels right now makes the most sense for some of these type of prospects that help set your future, because that's what made the Phillies, helped them to win a World Series, and that's what could help set them for the future. This is a make-or-break thing that will define Ruben Amaro's tenure as the general manager of this team. And that's what a lot of people have said. And I think that originally what they meant is if he can't get him signed, then it'll be a bad tenure. But at this point, with some of the stuff that we've now seen, holding on to Cole Hamels and signing into a $20-plus million contract, I can't say it would make me mad because I love Cole Hamels and it would be cool to see him stay. But, man, the future success of this team, if Cole Hamels stays, is probably actually going to be hurt rather than help.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge, huge deal for Ruben tomorrow. And even if they do, let's say they trade Cole Hamels to Texas for the third base prospect. So you're going to get him and probably two or three other prospects. So next year you're looking at a rotation with number 1 is Doc Halladay, 2 Cliff Lee, 3 Vance Worley, 4 Kyle Kendrick or Joe Blanton, and then maybe sign a veteran free agent. That's not a bad rotation in any means. Then spend some money on bullpen. But then you got these prospects. If they're going to be ready, I'm not saying next year, but 2 or 3 years, this lineup, it could go back to the offensive ways. And that's a good enough pitching rotation to win you games.
Yeah, it is. And people won't get it, but quite honestly, and I don't think this is going to happen. Ruben Amaro's not talking about going over the luxury tax and just saying, you know what, I'm just going to spend all the money that's not there, give it to Cole Hamels, and figure out the rest. I don't get this guy, and I've never really been a fan of Ruben Amaro because I think the guy's an asshole. Maybe that's what you need to be a great general manager, but he just comes off as an asshole to me, and I'm not a huge fan of him because of that and because of some of the trades he's made in the past. When he traded Cliff Lee to the Mariners, if he had just gotten the prospect then, well, then maybe we wouldn't have this problem. But he didn't, and that's the bottom line. End of story. John, what do you think about Zack Greinke?
Zack Greinke, I think he will blow up in a big market team. If he goes to the Yankees, which I heard the Yankees aren't interested, or someone else like that, I think he will be awful. I think he will be a perfect fit. Reportedly, Atlanta has been interested in him. If he goes to Atlanta, I think he'd fit in perfectly. But he's a very, to me, inconsistent pitcher. There's been reports that he's kind of a strange guy, like, give me the money now, stuff like that, like kind of arrogant, outgoing guy. If he goes to a big market, like I said, the Yankees, the Red Sox, someone like that, he will not have it. And his record has proven that when he's pitched. Milwaukee, they could keep him if they wanted to, but if Milwaukee's smart, they trade him right now. And I think Atlanta right now is the best fit. Atlanta or maybe even a Baltimore.
Yeah, both of those teams make the most sense. I don't see Baltimore giving up a ton because really, Zack Greinke this year, 9-3, 3.32 ERA. But if you go back to what he did last year when he went into a new place, Zack Greinke had a 3.83 ERA. The year before in Kansas City, he had a 4.17 ERA. He's been a good pitcher, but with the exception of 2009 when he was 16-8 with a 2.16 ERA through 6 complete games, won a Cy Young, he has never really been a great pitcher. And people are talking about him like he is almost as good as Cole Hamels, and I know it almost sounds like I came off negatively against Cole Hamels, but Zack Greinke is not as good as Cole Hamels, and he's not worth, like, Delgado or Tierin of the Braves. It would be giving up too much to get Zack Greinke. I think he's a good player. I ultimately think that we'll see Zack Greinke probably traded, but I can't give you a great guess of who's going to trade for him because I don't know if everyone is in, like, the same boat in terms of what Zack Greinke's value actually is. And, John, it's tough to really think about it. And here, I have an article pulled up from my website, therealsportstalk.wordpress.com, by Richard Janvrin. You can follow him on Twitter at rjanvrin3. He's the MLB rumors analyst for our website. And he gave out the 3 teams most likely to make a run at him, and he said the Rangers, who are interested in Cole Hamels and just kind of interested in adding another pitcher with Yu Darvish and Matt Harrison. We'll see, and they have the prospects to go ahead and do it. We'll see what happens with that. And he says that Martin Perez of the Rangers, their shortstop prospect, would make the most sense to be dealt for him. And he is a big prospect, but they really do not need position players because they have Elvis Andrus, they have a shortstop, and Michael Young's a shortstop. They have tons of position players that are locked up long term, so there's not really any need there. The Braves make sense, he says. They lost Brandon Beachy. Jair Jerson has had a terrible season, but he says that Tierin is untouchable, and he says that Randall Delgado, who I think is going to be a great pitcher, and I've talked to Kevin McAlpin of 680, the fan in Atlanta, I think, or no, it's the Braves radio network, whatever it is in Atlanta. I used to work in Philly. I know Kevin, but I talked to him, and he said that he's really going to be a good pitcher. So I'd be surprised if the Braves gave him up for Greinke. And then the Cardinals could make the most sense because they've had some injuries with McClellan, Carpenter, Garcia. So we'll see what happens. I don't think Zack Greinke is worth a ton in a trade. It's tough to determine his value because who knows if he's going to sign an extension. Like you said, we've heard of people like saying that Zack Greinke's a strange guy. So we'll see what happens. My guess is that Zack Greinke's traded, but again, I just cannot give you a guy that or a team that right now he's going to go to. A few other rumors before we get out of here that I'm just reading off MLBTradeRumors.com. Really, if you want to follow MLB Trade Rumors, like as we go down the stretch of the MLB Trade Deadline, just go to this website. Honestly, they have everything from every single source to second it breaks. And I'm not affiliated with the website or anything. Just this is a baseball fan's paradise, really. It says here that the Indians are trying to acquire Carlos Quentin, and I'm reading this word for word from MLBTradeRumors.com. It says the Indians are trying to acquire Carlos Quentin from the Padres, but the sides don't have much in common ground right now. That's according to Terry Pluto of the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Quentin is an impending free agent and figures to be dealt as the Friars, that's the Padres, are unlikely to extend him with the ownership situation that's still in flux. Now, the Dodgers' former owner, one of them, not Frank McCourt, but one of their minority partners is close to buying that Padres team, so we'll see what happens. I think it's likely, actually, that he stays put and they try to extend him, but we'll see what happens. Another note that I see here is that the Yankees GM Brian Cashman has no plans to acquire a catcher despite Russell Martin's struggles. That's according to Mark Carrick of the New York Star-Ledger. We have our catching, Cashman said. I believe in Russell Martin, period. So what this website basically does is they take all the big stories, all the big rumors from Twitter, from blogs, everything around, and trusted blogs, not just any blog. They take the big stories from around the MLB and just pretty much combine them into this website. The final note I want to get to is that it says the Phillies are flirting with exceeding, and I touched on this earlier, with exceeding MLB's luxury tax threshold of $178 million, which could affect their dealings with impending free agent Cole Hamels, who's also a threat, or who's also a potential trade candidate, according to Jim Salisbury of CSNPhilly.com. The looming threat of a luxury tax stifling a player's contract negotiations is something Union Chief Michael Weiner said wouldn't be happy about, but he understands it's part of the collective bargaining agreement. I think they're unlikely to go over this luxury tax, but I think that they want to try and find a way to keep Cole Hamels. Ruben Amaro wants to keep Cole Hamels, so, we'll see what happens with this. Cole Hamels saying it's going to be interesting. John and I will be here throughout the next few weeks to break down everything that goes down with the MLB trade deadline and everything. Obviously, tonight we had a great time discussing the All-Star game and the All-Star break festivities as the NL wins 8-0. They will have the next day or two off. I'm not sure if they have Thursday off. I think most teams are coming back and playing Friday again. So see what happens. They will be back on Friday in the MLB. Mlkey Cabrera wins the All-Star Game MVP as the National League clinches home field advantage in the All-Star Game 8-0. You can follow me on Twitter at CashKelly_TRST. Follow John Burns _MLB and Cash Kelly KASH_Kelly_TRST. Check out my website, therealsportstalk.wordpress.com. Going to be buying the domain name for that shortly. Check out The Real Sports Talk on Facebook, The Real Sports Talk, and check out our show at youtube.com/Mr. Kelstar. The show is called, take a wild guess, The Real Sports Talk. Check that out there as well. We have coverage from NASCAR, WWE, MLB, NFL, NHL, college sports, NBA, every sport that you could possibly think of, depending on whether you consider a few of those as sports. is covered on that as well. So, John, great job on the show tonight, as always.
Oh, yeah, you too, man.
All right, so that is it for tonight's Blitz Hardcore podcast, and I will see you guys back next week for the Blitz Hardcore podcast MLB show, and I'm sure Bruce will have something for you guys tomorrow night in terms of just overall sports coverage. So we'll see you guys.
No, I'm not really sure. I don't really prank monkeys, so I'm not really sure.